Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about one of the major benefits of doing, say, max effort work before we do hypertrophy work in the same workout. And in the conjugate system, this is what we do on 2 of our days every week. We do a heavy single, depending on how you're doing the system, at around 90% or just above, or we take it all the way to a full max. So a lot of times we do this, and then of course we do our hypertrophy work afterwards, all of our tens and stuff like that. I do mostly tens, prescribe mostly tens, and you'll see, in the workout I did above, just this is from a couple of the workouts I did, you'll see me do a closed grip press, fairly heavy one, and then I'm doing regular bench press afterwards, and I did some rows. So the idea here is that we hit the upper threshold muscle fibers. That means that the fastest switch fibers, the ones capable of the most power, the most strength, we have to fully activate them when we start getting to weights that heavy. And because we've activated them, normally you only see those as you approach failure when you're using submaximal weights. Or if you move the weight extremely fast, such as we do on speed work. So by doing this, we attenuate the motor units involved. So what does that mean? That means that those muscle fibers recruit again easier on subsequent sets. Okay, so then this has been found in studies. What they've found is that it can slightly improve your performance. So let's say you do something that's in that 90 to 95% of your max range, and then you do, it doesn't have to be the same exercise. It could just be similar muscle groups. In other words, I could do it with a closed grip bench, and I could follow it up with bench press, floor press, dumbbell presses, incline, doesn't matter. Right? Anything that's using pecs, delts, triceps. Right? We've hit those motor units and those muscle fibers, so they recruit again. And so what the studies find is that you're usually slightly stronger on the 10 rep sets. So what does that mean? That means better stimulus. That means that your workload in those subsequent sets is going to be slightly better. You're going to get slightly better muscle fiber recruitment. Therefore, you're going to get a little more hypertrophy. Okay, those are going to be superior sets. It's not dramatically different, but it's a little bit different. Okay, and because we have hit the highest threshold muscle fibers and we've done it with high amounts of tension first, we're re-engaging that again. So that also gives us a slight bias back towards myofibrillar muscle growth. Now, some people will say, well, why does that matter? I mean, if someone wants to get big as possible, shouldn't they be chasing everything? Yeah, there's certainly some truth to that, but here's the thing that you have to remember, and I've seen many coaches out there, I've seen experts out there point this out. There's some benefits to the myofibrillar growth. There's some benefits to chasing direct tissue hypertrophy instead of just inflammation and swelling. I've definitely seen Matt Winning point this out, that if you notice that oftentimes power lifters, and something he's observed for decades, versus bodybuilders, even if they come off the stuff they're on, even if they detrain a bit, the guys who trained really heavy, and that could be achieved just by those sets we just did, they keep the muscle better. In other words, it seems to be slightly more permanent. You can keep that muscle tissue longer. All right, then some stuff I've seen discussed when it comes to the really heavy lifting versus really high rep stuff. I've seen guys like Lyle McDonald discuss this, Menno Henselman. Some of these other evidence-based guys have pointed out, even for bodybuilders, like let's not just talk about strength athletes, which is my forte, and of course athletes who need strength. I work with a lot of fighters and stuff too, even some golfers, everything else, field athletes. But they point out that they look harder when they get lean, that there's a difference between people who have really focused on myofibrillar hypertrophy versus people who have just done nothing but pump work. There's a difference in the quality of the musculature when they get really lean. They look harder. They look more chiseled at the same body fat. They look less puffy. Okay? Now, obviously, things that people use affect that also, but realistically, you need to be enhancing that. So if you actually want that harder look when you get really lean, this matters, right? This stuff matters a lot. So there's a reason we do this stuff. Obviously we do it because we want to get really good at 1 rep maxes, right? And we have to do maxes to do that. But when it comes to actual tangible benefits for people who aren't even as concerned with the maxes, let's say people who just want to get big, they just want to get jacked, they want to look harder, they want to keep muscle longer, right? This starts to become a really valuable tool because it biases everything slightly more towards myofibular growth. And I don't mean that in a bad way, like the 10 rep sets are still going to cause different types of growth. They're going to cause a lot of things to happen. But we're reinforced by that how we've started the workout with the heavy work. Because we have hit the really heavy sets, we are going to get some myofibular growth from the heavy singles. And then the 10 rep sets, because we are hitting those higher tensions easier, we're going to get slightly more mechanical tension out of the 10 rep sets. All right. This is going to bias everything towards true tissue hypertrophy. It's going to bias everything towards myofibular growth. This is going to be higher quality muscle gains. And I think, and I hate to always use bodybuilding terms because I'm not a huge fan of that world. You guys know that. But when you hear them talk about muscle maturity, a lot of this is what they're talking about, just that harder look. And that harder look, what it really means is less of what you're seeing on these guys is things like sarcoplasmic growth or just holding more water in the muscle and inflammation, because a lot of that is training response. There's a stronger bias towards true muscle fiber hypertrophy, particularly the myofibular parts of the muscle. All right, that is what they're talking about when they talk about that muscle maturity thing. And that's one reason it takes so long, because it takes a longer time to really grow that tissue than it does just to get a pump, to get some transient storage factors and other things. And the thing to remember with it is it's not just that it takes longer to get it, you can keep it longer. It tends to be a little more permanent. It detrains slower, right? If you take 6 months off from lifting because you get sick or something gets in the way, if you have trained in that manner and gained large amounts of this type of hypertrophy, you tend to keep more of it. You keep more of it after that 6 months of detraining. And when you do start training again, you regain it more quickly. Okay, it is far more permanent. And that's really what we should be seeking, right? We should be seeking long-term changes that stay with us. And this is one of the best ways to achieve that, is using this sort of protocol in your training prior to doing your hypertrophy work. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.